I'm delighted to be joined by the chairman of, should we call you the Spartans or the European Research Group? But anyway, the true believers in Brexit. Yeah. Really, I just want to put the same point that I put to Andrea a moment or two ago. You have said to me repeatedly there are no circumstances in which you could vote for Theresa May's withdrawal agreement. What you're going to be asked to vote for is her withdrawal agreement, but just with a bit of lipstick on it.
No, that's not the case. So the point about the previously agreed withdrawal agreement and political declaration was it was a triple lock into the institutions of the EU between the implementation period, the backstop and the future relationship.
Well, the implementation period is still there.
Well, that's the point I'm making, is that Boris Johnson has dramatically changed the destination. Instead of being a kind of regulatory satellite of the EU, we're going to a normal free trade agreement, which is a relationship of the character they offered us, which, by the way, I've always said I wanted. He's going to deal with the backstop. I'm expecting the backstop to be gone. The withdrawal agreement opened up, completely removed the biggest section.
But can I ask you about that? Because in Brussels, they are characterising the changes to the backstop as broadly cosmetic. That what they are saying is that the Prime Minister is signing up to something that looks a lot to them like a Northern Ireland-only customs union backstop.
So my clear understanding is that the DUP's red lines are for Northern Ireland to be in the same customs territory as the rest of the UK, like any normal country would be, and to have regulatory alignment with consent. And they're two big red lines, and I'm expecting them to be delivered. That is quite different to the backstop which was there before. We would end up...
But everybody agrees that there will be customs collected for the EU by British tax collectors on essentially in the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now, that's the sort of thing you would have expected the DUP to utterly reject.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing the detailed legal text, because on this point, the government has quite rightly prioritised having those discussions with the DUP. As I've said repeatedly, it's not my job as a Buckinghamshire MP to be more unionist on Northern Ireland than the DUP. So those discussions have predominantly taken place with the DUP. If they're content on the narrow issue of Northern Ireland, I don't see us coming in and gainsaying them on the issue of Northern Ireland. So those particular discussions are with them. It's not yet clear to me whether the government is proposing this so-called new customs partnership for Northern Ireland or not. But that's what, because...
But you've been into Downing Street.
Yes, we have.
3 times in the last couple of...
Yes, we've been in 3 times.
How come you don't yet know what they're proposing?
But that's
what was the point of the meetings?
So that's the point I'm making, Robert, is that we've been in to talk about the concerns which are the predominant concerns of Eurosceptic Conservatives. On the issue of Northern Ireland, Boris Johnson has published his proposals. We're familiar with those proposals. If the DUP are content with those proposals, we'll be content with those proposals. We don't really need to go to and fro across the nuance of them. That is predominantly a conversation with the DUP.
So just to be absolutely clear, you will take your lead from the DUP, but surely not on everything.
So sorry, you've exactly right. So you asked me earlier, how is it different? So if the original deal was a triple lock, Boris has dealt with 2 of the 3 element locks. The questions for us are all about the remaining items in the withdrawal agreement. So on the narrow issue of Northern Ireland, if the DUP are happy, it's not for us to gainsay them.
Right.
So, but on other issues, like we've fleshed these out so many times before.
So European Court of Justice still having a role when it comes to EU citizens and UK citizens?
So obviously, we're willing to compromise. Now, people have liked to set up a straw man and say these guys won't compromise. But accepting voluntary ECJ reference on citizens' rights is a compromise people are willing to make. And it's been a compromise we've long been willing to make. But the fundamental point, the absolutely fundamental point, is after we've left the European Union, the jurisdiction of European law, the supremacy of European law, and the jurisdiction of the European Court must come to an end. Now, willing to go for voluntary reference, willing to accept that European citizens will have some additional rights over other people, that also is a big compromise in a diverse seat like mine. But, we're trying to be ferociously pragmatic to get this thing done, because actually we're all working really hard with Boris to enable an exit with a deal.
Here we go. Words I've never thought that I would hear the chairman of the Spartans say. Ferociously pragmatic.
Yeah, of course.
But on actually what I think for you is a genuinely crucial issue. in order, as we've been discussing, to get a few Labour MPs on board to support this deal, and he needs those votes to get it across the line, it looks as though he has decided, as part of a free trade agreement, to say that the UK will match European Union standards when it comes to workers' rights and the environment. Are you prepared to live with that?
So there is no majority in the United Kingdom for a sudden and rapid liberalisation on our standards.
Sure.
And nobody's proposing to do it. So again,
but if these level playing field conditions were legally binding as part of a free trade agreement, you could live with them.
The point is we've got to see the text. I know it's so frustrating for everybody because at the moment what we've got is a Guardian journalist reporting what Michel Barnier said to have reported to EU ambassadors, and long experience shows that these are not very reliable bases on which to make a judgment of what we're going to vote for. So we need to get the text of a revised withdrawal agreement and a revised political declaration. We also need to see the implementing legislation, because there'll be relevant elements in there that are relevant to the decision. And then we can take a decision on the whole thing, because actually there's thousands, possibly millions of people out there counting on Andrea and on me and on other colleagues to make sure they get the Brexit they voted for. And we're going to live up to that.
We've got almost... This is a very quick answer, a very quick question. For you, is it more important to get the right deal or to leave on the dot of midnight, or in fact it be 11 o'clock on the 31st of October? Would you be prepared to allow a little bit of slippage in the Brexit date to get the right deal?
We have to keep faith with the public, keep their faith in our democracy, and that means keeping our promises, and that means leaving on the 31st of October.
Even if a deal could be done 2 days later?
But this is so speculative. As has been said earlier in the programme, we have seen that Parliament can legislate lightning fast.
We've got to I think people out there are going to find this slightly odd if for you the right deal is what matters. But plenty more to pick up with all my amazing guests after the break.